Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. On this Earth Day special, I'm delighted to be joined in conversation by Nick, who founded his business Wooden Journey 5 years ago on Earth Day in 2019. Earth Day is an annual celebration on the 22nd of April that brings together people from around the world to celebrate the Earth and share their commitments and intentions in support of environmental protection. My conversation with Nick was the perfect way to celebrate the intention of this day. Nick is one of those beautiful, kind, compassionate and inspiring people whose courage, enthusiasm and passion is both infectious and impactful, and I hope that hearing his story will leave you all feeling excited, reinvigorated and empowered to know that it's a lot easier than you think for you to be part of the solution and join the journey to help bring to life the vision of a better future where we return to right relationship with the earth and the positive news outweighs the bad. Nick had an experience we will all relate to, feeling a sense of profound loneliness and despair due to the state of the environment, that left him with the question, what can I do? He took this question and from it sprung an amazing idea to find a way to have an impact and also provide a way that allowed others to join him on the journey. Alongside his friend and business partner, working in their spare time and on a serious bootstrap budget, they taught themselves to roast coffee and have created several specialty roasts from organic fair trade beans. With the profits from the sales of their coffee, they invest in restoring the earth, supporting tree planting organisations around the world and other wildlife initiatives. Their impact is already tangible. Nick is a wonderful example of active hope in action, and he reminds us that there is power in following your dreams, not giving up even when it feels insurmountable, and to always believe and never to doubt that it is possible for you to make a difference. There's no single solution, and the earth needs all of us with our unique ideas, talents and visions. We truly are stronger together. Welcome, Nick, and thank you so much for joining us today on this episode of the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I'm really looking forward to our conversation because I think there's a lot of people out there that will relate to your journey and your story and how you got started with your amazing business. But just to get us started, I always ask my guests to share a little bit about their nature story, and really that can be interpreted any way you like, but just what nature's been to you in your life, any fond memories or anything you'd like to share just to get us started would be lovely.
Yeah, and it's really, thank you again for having me, Fiona. I'm really looking forward to connecting with you more. So, yeah, I mean, in terms of my nature story, it's funny, it sounds cliche, but I feel like it's just something that's always been kind of embedded in me ever since I was a kid. I mean, just as a child, just pure love of animals. I think that's really where it stemmed for me.
Yeah.
I mean, I have very fond memories of, going to local zoo and just being like fascinated by wildlife, just the different
Yeah.
species and like just absolutely blowing my mind. I feel like if there's one thing that started, it would probably be that, just seeing the examples of the incredible world that's out there.
Yeah.
And then just I mean, I grew up in downstate on Long Island, so I'm a big beach guy. And now I'm upstate in New York, and just my love of parks and being able to be just simply outdoors and connecting to our planet, I think really inspires me too, and encourages me to, protect as much as I can for the next generations after us. So I'd say
Yeah.
that's probably in a nutshell on just
Yeah, no,
my
it's
pure love for it.
I think a lot of people relate to that. I certainly do. I was also growing up in the UK. I just was fascinated by the zoos were a place where we could see these amazing animals from sort of other countries, and actually that inspired my love of Africa, and I was fortunate enough to go and live and work there. So
Wow.
it served its purpose served its purpose in inspiring me, and certainly just being out in nature is just, yeah, I think it inspires you to want to give back, doesn't it? I think that's the thing as well. You feel part
Definitely.
of this greater circle and cycle of things, and want to do the best you can. And I think that brings us back to how you got started with your business, didn't you? Because you actually had this like quite sort of powerful experience of sitting at home. I don't know if you want to share that, for because I'm sure a lot of people can relate to that feeling, So
Yeah.
if you want to share, that would be brilliant.
Yeah, no, I'd love to, and I just gotta chill because every time I think about it, it's like really the stem of what started my journey here, and everything that I'm doing. So, yeah, I mean, I remember it really dates back when I was in college. It was kind of when I was really still learning about myself and seeing, what's my career going to be? What am I going to have as my
Yeah.
impact and my, legacy on this world? And what does that path look like for me for work? And I was actually in nursing school, in upstate in New York.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
I got into the clinical programs and, I always just wanted to help people. And, I thought that was going to be the path for me, just be a nurse. And I'll never forget it. I was starting my first week of clinicals and it just like a wall, it hit me. Just, I knew I wasn't meant to be a nurse. I was dealing with some patients and, God bless every single one of them. Like we need them and they're such an important, part of our society. But
Yeah.
I just knew that wasn't my calling in life. And I felt that in my inner core. And that really, I think, started my journey. And that kind of went down to me asking honest questions about myself, saying, well, what do I really love?
Yeah.
Who is Nick? And that started, I'm like, well, I've always loved nature. I've always loved wildlife. What if I could do something, with environmental science and et cetera? And at this point, I was already so close to finishing my degree. It was kind of going to have to reset another 4 or 5 years to finish my
Yeah.
bachelor's. So I kind of switched into public health and started learning about all of the things happening with, climate change. And I was definitely going down that rabbit hole, learning about all the issues happening.
Yeah.
And it just felt so hopeless. I'm like, oh my God, I'm living my life over here. And how is this stuff not getting headline attention, with the
Yeah.
wildfires,
Yeah.
aridification, I smelled everything that we all know so knowing well here, and that kind of started the journey. I was just kind of sitting on my couch, feeling very sad one day, just I'm like, what can I do? I'm up here in New York and, we're seeing these world record wildfires in, the Amazon rainforest. Australia lost 1 billion animals in a month and we don't
Yeah.
even bat an eye anymore. And what am I going to do about it? It's really kind of what started me. And I'm like, I just have to do something, even if it's in this small little way. I just want to like be a beacon and just show I guess just show that there's a possibility to still make an impact in an accessible way. And that kind of led me to, my wooden journey, if you will. So
Uh, I just, I just love that because I think so many people can relate to that feeling of just complete despair and hopelessness, can't we? And it's just, just all of this being bombarded by all of this sort of desperately bad news, and it's almost normal, isn't it? It's like it's normalized. It's like, oh, there's
yes,
another climate change story. Oh, there's another wildfire. There's another
here we go
like
again.
extreme weather event, flooding, or something like that. And kind of, I think a lot of us that care about it, we get to that stage that you got to where we almost can't cope with it. And I think that's what a lot of people do as well. They have to sort of zone out from it because it's just too much for their system to
Yeah.
cope
Like
with.
disassociate from the issues.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. And there's no judgment. There's like it's just, inbuilt innate survival for all of us to just be like, I just can't cope with this. And but I love what you're doing because you actually took that sort of space and you sat with it and you were like, hang on a minute, there must be something I can do. There's something that I can do, even if it feels really small to start off with. There's like
Correct.
something I can do and I want to do that and I want to find what that is. And I just think that's so powerful. And I just want to like say thank you to you for like doing that because I
Thanks,
think
Fiona.
it takes a lot of courage to do that, to be like, maybe I don't know the answer, but I want to look for something. And I'm prepared to ask the question and sort of sit in that space. And I think, yeah, it does take a huge amount of courage. So I just want to say, like, thank you,
Yeah.
firstly, for
No,
doing
that
that.
got to me. I really appreciate that. And for everyone that's listening too, I mean, if there's anything I can say, it's just like be okay with who you are and know that you can make a difference. And it's going to be scary and you're going to hit bumps in the road, but like just believe in yourself. And like you said, it's very hard, but I think we all have a lot more power than we all think.
Yeah.
And when you're really passionate about something, you'd be amazing what you can do. So just for everyone that's listening, like if you have big dreams, go for them. It's
Yeah.
going to take time, but don't give up. You have one special life and, just do what you can. And, just know that you can make an impact, even if it doesn't feel like it's this big macro level. There's 8+ billion of us. So if we're all
Yeah.
doing a little bit, it all does matter. So
Yeah, I think I love that. I love what you just said. Like I think we have forgotten like how powerful we actually are. And we're made to feel like anything we do is just too small and it doesn't have an impact. But actually what we completely miss is like if everyone just did a small thing, like you can have this huge, huge impact. And I think that's what's lovely about your business that you started, which we're going to dive into as well, but is just that you not only wanted to do something yourself, but you wanted to create something that other people could easily get involved with as well. So that if they had that feeling, they maybe didn't have to go out and sort of go like as full into the journey as you did.
My rabbit
Um,
hole, right?
yeah, and they could just it was an easier step for them to just be like, hey, I can just support Nick rather than have to.
He'll take care of it.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Exactly.
And but that's another thing that I think we forget and we overlook is actually like, there are amazing people like you out there that have like, started to take this path and actually we just need to follow your path. We don't have to go sort of, through the bush trying to like search our way through the jungle trying to find our own path. Like
Right.
we can follow in
So
the
true.
footsteps of people like yourself and support what you're already doing, which is a much easier thing for people to do and feels less overwhelming, which I think is really powerful as well. So
Thank you.
again, thank you for
Oh,
for helping to be a pathfinder because we definitely need people like you in the world. But yeah,
thank
do you
you.
want to talk a little bit about Wooden Journey? Because I think it's great because it's quite simple in its concept, but incredibly powerful in its impact as well.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, and that really does mean a lot to me. So, yeah, and you really touched it best, Fiona. I think what started Wooden Journey for me was, the question is, what can someone do to make it extremely easy to support these issues where they don't have to worry about flying to, Africa or the Amazon or Indonesia to, like you said, be in the jungle themselves. And
Yeah.
I wanted to bring that kind of solution close to home. And, I gave birth to, Wooden Journey in 2019 on Earth Day.
Yeah,
Um,
it's almost 5 years ago. I was like, oh, that's
we're
perfect.
coming
Like,
up.
yeah.
Yeah, it's been a roller coaster, and we've definitely changed and adapted a lot. And there's nothing like starting a business right before a once in a century epic pandemic.
Oh God, yeah, COVID,
So
yeah.
that was a fun time.
Yeah.
But yeah, I kind of just started doing stuff on social media, just kind of sharing knowledge the best that I could. And I for a little bit I had a Patreon account going, and I still do, where I was doing just kind of like environmental content. But I didn't feel like that connected for a lot of people. Like it was a very good little niche thing, but I wanted to really have a product that I created in that way too. Like I love the media and I love being able to write. I'm a big writer. But I wanted to kind of do some of my hands as well and make something that almost every, especially in the United States, drinks like every single day religiously, 2, 3 cups a day. And me and my best friend, business partner, Brian, we would go to a cafe, a coffee shop. Like, what can we do? What can we do? Another coffee, have another coffee, another coffee. And then one day, me and him just looked at each other in the face. We were like, we're idiots. Like this, I think this is it, man. So it's kind of what started. I'm like, we're drinking the answer right now. So we've always been kind of like lovers for coffee, and I've definitely gone down that rabbit hole too. But we kind of started that journey on just saying, what if we can have a really good product, that's sustainable, organic, and we're making it from our, own, flesh and blood and hands, and we can give
Yeah.
that product to someone that they can, start the day, and enjoy every day, but knowing, that cup of coffee is going towards conservation globally. That felt like a really powerful idea. And, a year and a half ago, we, started roasting and kind of got into our kitchen labs and started learning recipes and stuff. And, here we are. So, we're doing fair trade organic, single origin and specialty grade coffee right now, where every, a part of our sales are going towards reforestation and conservation efforts globally. So,
No, I love that. And I think it's one of the things that's really, I've talked to a few guests in the past, is about like the power of consumers and sort of the consciously choosing the
you
products that
go
you're
with your dollar.
buying and the companies that you're buying from, and actually how that can have like this massive impact. And
Huge.
there's twofold to what you're doing there. So one is obviously like from a proportion of your sales that we'll go on and talk to is supporting conservation and tree
Yeah.
planting, but actually even the coffee you're sourcing organic, fair trade. So you're also supporting that side of like the production chain and
Yep. Full
better
circle.
practices that are more sustainable supportive of the environment in that way, and also people with fair
Yeah.
trade, because that's important in the fair trade is the
Yes.
way the producers are sort of supported and treated as well. So is is a lovely twofold element to your business that you've created there.
Yeah, no, thank you. And that's the thing. Like, I think I dub myself like a social entrepreneur. It's, business for good. And I think business has a lot of power because, as you said, as a consumer, you vote with your dollar. I mean, every single day. And I feel like you said, a lot of people do feel hopeless because, what can I do every day? You can go to the store and just choose a more sustainable product. No
Yeah.
matter what the product is, you can have sugarcane plates instead of plastic plates.
Yeah.
And you'd be amazed what these massive corporations, once you start taking 3 to 5% of their market share, because these consumers are like, oh, the mass population cares about sustainability.
Yeah.
They'll change their global sourcing cycle very, very fast, and all of a sudden you'll see these big companies starting to adapt to more sustainable practices. So vote with your dollar every day. You really can choose more sustainable products. So
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with that. I had a guest quite a while ago who was very much into like the sort of household products and beauty industry, and she would advise people
yeah,
of like how to find good like sustainable products and ethical products, and
awesome.
she said something really powerful, which was like basically those of us that are in this privileged position, who most people who are living listening to a podcast are living a relatively privileged life,
All
like
blessed.
we have a responsibility to proactively use our consumer power for the good, and actually, like you said, by doing that, you do encourage these companies in the only way that in the language that they speak, which is profit,
Correct.
to
Correct.
make better choices. And it might seem like really, really small, but I think that's again like what we were saying earlier is like these actions that feel really small and inconsequential, actually, they do all add up. And if you have 100 or 1,000 people just go, oh, I'm going to buy a different coffee, or I'm going to, buy a different, whatever it is, shampoo or laundry detergent. It's like, you do start making a difference, and then you tell your friends, and then they go and buy it, and you do
Yeah.
over
Yeah.
time. It might not. I think that's the thing, is maybe in society we have this kind of like this hustle culture, don't we? And we expect things to,
Yes,
you
we
know,
do. Yeah.
have a massive change immediately. And I think we get disheartened when we don't see it immediately. But I think that's the nice thing about your journey as well. Is like we're 5 years into your wooden journey,
Yeah.
and it's like it's evolved, and you're almost only just beginning, but you've already had an amazing impact, which I think is lovely as well.
Thank you. Yeah, it's funny because when I started Wooden Journey too, I'm like, oh, in 2 years I'll stop the climate crisis, and like I think part of me really believed that. I'm like, okay, come back to Earth. Like it's great that you're that passionate, but like know that you can just make you're a 1-2 person team now. Just know that you can make a difference in a small way too, and just be okay with that. And I think I've done a better job at, telling myself that too. It's like, obviously I want to do as much as I can, but there's a lot of factors going on in the world,
Yeah.
and I don't sadly have control in a lot of those ways, but just knowing that, like we said, all of us can make the difference in that way. And just knowing when I go shopping, choosing better things, even like bamboo toilet paper,
Yeah.
bamboo grows 6 feet per year instead of cutting down these old growth forests. Just these little things, it really does matter. So
Yeah, no, I love that. And so you buy the coffee, and then you've learnt to roast it yourself. I mean, I find that quite fascinating. So this is like a whole new skill that you kind of developed, and
whole new
yeah.
skill. Yeah, I when we were going down that second rabbit hole, the first the conservation rabbit hole, then the coffee rabbit hole, we were thinking, I'm like, where how do we even do this? It's like we love it, but oh my god, like we have no idea what we're doing. So we started that process, and I think it's a really funny story and a pretty humble one. To really start roasting, me and my friend, we saved up all of our Christmas gift cards, and we bought these small tabletop roasters on Amazon because the
Oh,
big industrial machines, I mean, they're 25, $30,000
yeah,
easy, and
yeah,
we didn't have that. We still don't. And we're like,
yeah.
we got to make this happen. Like we're frugal. Let's see if we can bootstrap stuff. So me and him, we saved up all of our like little gift cards, and we bought all of our equipment off of those. So I'm like, we're gonna start. It's gonna be small, but we're gonna get started. So we're still using those to that day, to this day. We're still using those little guys, which is a fun part of it as well. But Yeah, we learned how to roast. It's very, very fun. Real quick on that, every single bean requires different things. Taking it to different profiles, taking it to, a light, medium, or dark roast matters. Um, Even different areas and different regions are going to have different flavor profiles and different tasting notes. It's a fascinating world. And with coffee, there's a lot of good that you can do on the sourcing and a lot of bad, and that's why it was very important to us. Like, it has to be fair trade and it has to be organic as well, because we want it obviously to have the environmental give back on at the end of
Yeah,
the purchase cycle, but we want to make sure that we're sourcing from these areas that are giving back to those local communities
yeah,
to inspire them economically to make their society even better, and encourage those areas to grow with us.
yeah,
So that's a
exactly.
really important part to me as well. And I love that aspect too.
Yeah, I think I mean it's something like we in this country, well, I'm in the UK and you're in the US, so
Yeah,
share if it's the same there. But there's a big movement for like local as well, growing local and things. But some things,
cultural.
are actually better produced further away. And I spent quite a lot of time in Africa, and a lot of these like conservation areas, they
Yeah,
need income and they need to find ways that work for them to, that work with the environment, work with the people, and they can raise income. And there's one of the parks, Virunga in the Democratic Republic of Congo, which is quite a tricky place because tourism doesn't work hugely well because there's a lot of conflict still going on. Like some of the things that they do is that they grow coffee and they also grow cacao for chocolate and they produce things like that. And they obviously like local communities produce like woven products and things like that. And but they need people in the UK and USA to purchase them to have like that extra income coming into the region to support
yes.
that area. So yeah, I think sometimes there's things that it's a very it's really complicated, isn't it? I think sometimes we want things to be really simple and be
Complicated.
like, oh, we just have to do this. And actually, there's so many layers to things. And
It's not black and white at all.
yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly. So, and I think it's lovely because I believe, if I'm right, you've just started doing some wholesale as well. So you've got some of your coffee has gone into sort of local businesses and things that you're now partnering with as well. So you're having an even greater impact as well through that.
Yeah, yeah, we just got into I think it's our seventh location now, in terms of like retail stores too. So that's the thing. I'm a big believer in local. Like, the most that you can do local, the better. But like you said, sourcing from these areas does bring them up too.
Yeah,
But local's great. I mean, we have so many, fresh farms around near me, and getting that local produce from local farmers instead of shipping it from wherever it's coming from. Why not just get an apple from 20 miles away instead of
yeah,
300? Like, big believer in that. But coffee's tricky because you have to have exact correct atmospheric, climate, accolades in order to make sure that it can grow. So really, and if you really look at where coffee grows in the world, it really hugs the equator line of our
yeah,
planet. I mean, even, the height, the atmosphere, the elevation, the soil, it all matters towards how the bean tastes, and you just can't grow it in New York. It has to be in that fine
yeah,
area, just the way that the crop works. But you can source it in a sustainable way, and then partner with your local organizations that want to carry your coffee. So
yeah,
you can make those connections in the interweb fabrics through it still. And yeah, the biggest thing, we really want to be rooted locally. That's really, really important, and we're starting to do that. And just kind of betters, one, the place that you're living, and prospering the area that you already do call home, and it's a really exciting thing. So
yeah, and I love the small business kind of side of it as well because you can ask people like you these questions like where do you get your coffee from? Like how is it produced? And
yeah.
you guys know you have the answers, which obviously, some of the, the big faceless brands that you might buy from a supermarket and you have no idea. And sometimes there's
Mhm.
quite a lot of greenwashing. I'm gonna say sometimes, but there's quite a lot of greenwashing goes on in in marketing and
Yeah.
what sort of portrayed versus what's actually happened. So I think that's
Right.
one of the power of like actually these like small people, local people that you can get sort of get behind and support. It's really that sort of grassroots kind of movement, which is really powerful.
Right. It's funny. It's true. I think, like, a lot of people, like, they'll say they're fair trade, but 1% of the beans that they use is fair
Yeah.
trade. It's like, okay, yeah, but we need a little bit more than that, so just,
Yeah, no,
and then just don't even say you are at that point, just be transparent in that manner,
yeah,
so
it is shocking. I mean, I know it's like chocolate as well is another one. I've got another guest coming on shortly
yeah,
who's going to talk about the chocolate industry.
I'm a chocolate
And
fan. I'll join that one too.
yeah.
Just kidding.
And it is, but when you start reading labels and you're like, oh, it's like 1% or 10% of all of the beans that we source are like, and you're like, okay, but that means 90% isn't, and it's
Right.
like, whereas
Yeah.
like yours is like 100%, and it's,
Right.
that's it. It's fantastic. But so that's the we've sort of focused on the production side of it, but I know the other side of it, which is equally important and probably more important in terms of what it motivated you in the first place,
Yeah.
is that you actually, you use your sales to do good, basically. So if you want to talk about what's the sort of that side of your business is, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, and that's definitely one of my favorite parts. So, thank you for asking me. Yeah, so we're really proud partners of a group called Eden Reforestation Projects and now SaveNature.org. So we really started with Wooden Journey. I wanted to really focus on like reforestation efforts and tree planting and stuff, but you know, kind of making more natural parks and like being a steward of these areas is,
Yeah,
just as important for me on the restoration aspect. So Leader Reforestation Projects has really helped us with the tree planting. They're based in California, but they have the boots on the ground across the entire world, and kind of going back on making those communities even better on like the way that we source the beans by using them to kind of do the tree planting. We're able to kind of help the areas that have been deforested and degraded,
yeah.
and all those local communities. For example, like Madagascar, they're planting mangrove trees, but Madagascar as a country, it's 90-95% deforested. In
I
like the
know.
last
I've
100
actually
years.
been to Madagascar.
Wow,
Um,
it's incredible. Yeah,
and
I want to go so bad.
yeah, it's so I was there quite a long time ago now.
Yeah.
It was in 2007, 2008 time, and I spent about a month on the island. And even then, there was a huge amount of deforestation. And I think I'd love to go back because it is just the most incredible place in the world. Like the
It's gotta
wildlife, the
be.
biodiversity, the endemic species. I mean, it's just, I mean,
It's
obviously
special.
everyone knows about lemurs and like,
Right, right. There's
and
so
that's,
many
but
species
like
though.
the endemic bird life, insects, the plants. I mean, it's just like this little, well, a huge island, but it's just there's so much of the biodiversity there
Yeah.
exists nowhere else in the world. And
Right.
yeah, the deforestation even then was quite huge, and it was known, it's sort of fondly known as the Red Island, but actually it's quite sad why it's called the Red Island, and that's actually because so much of the soil and the silt like washes down and out
Wow.
into the ocean, that actually you get this kind of halo effect around the island from the red soil. So that's why it's known as the Red Island. So actually
I never knew
that
that.
was one of the things I loved. Was I was like, oh wow, Madagascar, because I've actually been through
Yeah.
some of the mangroves, because that's what you're
So
focusing
cool.
on is mangroves, and I've seen actually some of the mangroves in Madagascar
I'm
myself.
so
And
jealous. I'm
and
so
so I
jealous.
was like, yeah, it's really, really important because they basically like hold the island together. And yeah, so
Correct.
it's fantastic. I loved that that was one of the places that you were working.
Yeah, yeah, and that's the thing. Like these areas, when they start to be deforested, people, you're really part of the cycle. So once you deforest those areas, those natural resources are gone.
Yeah,
And with mangroves, like you said, they hold the soil integrity. So one, when it helps with, natural like hurricanes or storms that are coming in,
yeah,
the water flooding that's coming up, they act as like they really are a barrier. It's like a natural
yeah,
wall for the island itself. So when you take that away, now that local community needs to, they're like really three steps back to try to reinvigorate the area, when if you just kept the natural resource area the way that it was supposed to be and conserve it, they wouldn't
yeah,
have had to be three steps back. So I think that was really cool and a reason why I partnered with them, because for these areas that have, been deforested and degraded, well, hey, if we're going to be planting trees, how about we plant trees in these areas where the communities can kind of grow back their natural resources,
yeah,
use them, sustainably. And then the other really cool part is it's paying them a fair wage in those countries to kind of bring those, economics back into their societies. So really from, is really kind of the whole planet, from the sourcing to the producing to the end source conservation, just making it that full cycle the best that I could. So that's what we're doing with Eden Reforestation Projects. And I think we just passed I think we're at over 36,000 trees now
Oh,
internationally.
wow.
Mostly with them, a couple other organizations that we work with. Trees for the Future, they're based in Kenya and they do tree farms. Really starting to work with them a lot, which is really cool. And then Save Nature is probably my kind of guilty pleasure as well right now, because through them, you're really able to kind of conserve and adopt an acre in these international areas.
Okay.
So I think for like $100 you can donate to them, as a corporation or as a business, and they're able to partner with other local communities on the ground and steward over, acres and acres of land. So it kind of protects them and adopts them for generations to come, so they don't get deforested, and really protects them and conserves them. So that's really special to me. And I was working with Rainforest Trust for a little bit, so I'm trying to work with a bunch of different organizations, but try to keep like two or three close to home as our main partners. Um, and to date, we're over 200 acres conserved internationally as well between all of our impacts. So it's
Mm.
exciting. I mean, it's been a crazy journey, and I want to keep it going. And who knows how much we'll be able to conserve over our path, but I just want to do as much as I can. So
Yeah, but I mean, this is the thing, isn't it? I mean, it's like we kind of again, it's like we say it like it's insubstantial, like, oh, 36,000 trees. It's like, can you
yeah,
imagine,
yeah,
like,
you're right.
you put it, if you put them all together and you're like, wow, that's gonna like be quite a visual impact if you saw them all together. And I think, so
Right,
yeah,
right, I bet.
I just I wanna say, like, firstly, like, well done.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I think, well, I think that's the other thing that we're maybe a little bit guilty of is, it's not that we want to rest on our laurels, but like actually we do need to just, cheerlead and sort of applaud like the people that are doing things and just sort of say, hang on a second, just take a second and just go, wow, look what you've done. Like it's,
Yeah, I
it's
appreciate that.
yeah, and I think that's important because it can be, hard and demoralizing at times. We're still getting bombarded by a lot of, negativity and it's just, but yeah, that's amazing. It's like in 5 years you've done this and you've been finding your feet in all of that time. I know it's only a side project for you as well. It's like you're not on this full time as well.
No,
So, oh yeah, I think it's a great example of what is possible actually, like here you were, one person, feeling sort of overwhelmed and, just
yeah,
depressed really by the state of the natural world,
yeah,
and you were like, what can I do? And you've gone on to, and this is just the tangible impact that you've had, which is like you've actually, you've physically done this already, but like you will have
yeah,
had a ripple effect that you probably will never even know, of like people that who've come across you and thought, oh wow, okay, Nick sort of said this, that sort of raised my awareness of it. I've gone out and done other things. And
yeah,
I think that's the other side of it, is that, there's a lot that's quantifiable, but there's a lot that isn't quantifiable about people like yourself, like actually just doing this. And yeah, so I really, it was really, I just want to say well done and like have you sit for a minute and just be like, yeah, it was pretty cool coming up on my fifth anniversary of the business, celebrating Earth Day next week, and just being like, wow, look what we're already achieving, and we're just getting going.
yeah. I really do appreciate that, Fiona, because I mean, I'm definitely guilty of that, and it's nice. It's refreshing because I definitely, what's the words? I mean, to me, it's not. I always like internalize it too much, like more and more, like do more impact and stuff. But I really don't sit too much with it either. Like, because like you said, I mean, I am working full time on top of this right now, and one person, two person team, like that's all we've had. We don't have access to all these, resources and help, especially like funding
Yeah.
and stuff. So we're bootstrapping everything. I mean, really, like every
Yeah.
single thing for every single part of the team and the business right now, and it's just refreshing, from someone that's just learning about us to really appreciate that, because I'm really not used to it. So it does mean a lot for that genuine thank you. So thank you for that.
No,
It kind
I
of helps
just,
me bring myself back to the ground sometimes, and back to earth, pun
yeah.
intended. So
Yeah, I think it's hard though. I think I think you can be so busy as well, like you're working so hard to like make this happen that like sometimes you just actually need to have that moment to someone say, hang on a minute, like, yeah, look at what you've achieved. Like, well done. Like that's really incredible. And like if you sat there
Yeah,
like yourself,
that.
back when you were sort of really doubting like what could be done and you were like, hey, in 5 years' time I'm gonna have planted this many trees, like you'd be like, yeah, I'd be happy with that. That would be a good start. So
Yeah, you're right. I never really thought of it end that way. It's just to really sit back. It's always like, all right, well, how can we do more? But just, I've never been good at looking back. It's like, oh, be proud of yourself. Like, give yourself a little
yeah,
pat on the back. So thank you. And I've always been bad at that. I think just through my whole life, it's just who I am. But just making more time to reflect on that it's something I definitely need to work on. So just knowing you're one person and you can only do so much, and just being kind to yourself, I think, is what you're saying too. And I think
yeah,
there's merit for all of us to just be kind to ourselves and know we're all doing the best that we can in the capacity that we can. So I really do
yeah.
appreciate it.
Yeah, no, I think it's really important, and I think that's one of the things for me with my podcast is like having community as well is and
Yeah.
that's really the power of what your business is it's like you're tapping into the power of community to like make these changes. And we it's important that we celebrate the wins, because I think a lot of time we get so focused on like the negativity and things, but actually like it's important to celebrate the wins because they give us the sort of the landmarks, the waypoints that we're moving in the right direction. It's not to say we're gonna, just because we're celebrating, we're gonna stop and like give up the journey. But we can
Right.
have we can have some nice moments along the route as well, I think.
Right, right.
Yeah.
It's like you can appreciate the certain steps, and it's important to outline that because it's very easy. Because I feel like a lot of people are busy, and it's just okay. Well, let's just keep doing the next thing and moving on and moving on. But like sitting for a second, just appreciating the path, because if you
Yeah.
don't do that, what's the point? So it's important.
Yeah, I think it is really important, and I think that's the beauty of nature. I think when we get out in nature, it gives us that perspective, doesn't it? It gives us that sort of like reality check, and it reminds us while we're doing it, but also it's like you are having an impact, and that's incredible. And I think, I mean, if even 1% of the people listening could say, oh, in 5 years' time I've helped plant 36,000 trees, like that's the that's this is how we get momentum, and actually things are moving in the right direction. And I think before we started, like we were both saying, like it feels quite often that actually there's not many people and we're a bit alone in the journey. And I think actually the more I've been doing the podcast, the more I've felt like actually there's a lot of people out there and we just don't hear about them. So that's part of my one of my things is trying to like allow people to find people like you to realize that actually there's so many different ways that we can help. And I love what you've done. I mean it's just I don't, it's not something I would have come up with. I wouldn't have gone, oh, do you know, I could source coffee and I could learn to roast it and I could sell it like locally and, and it's just
Yeah,
it's
but
just
maybe this is
amazing.
this is your approval to start if you want. You're clearly you're a force, so I believe that you could if you put your mind to it.
Yeah, but I love that. I think it's just so important to just be like, there's no one way. It's like it needs all of us, like with all of our unique visions and talents and different ideas. And it's like, together we can all, what do they say, a rising tide lifts all boats. And it's, this is the thing.
Yeah.
It's like, there might be someone listening who goes, oh, I'd love to roast coffee, or they might sit there and go, oh, well, what could I do? Like, maybe I'm not going to roast coffee, but what else could I do? What is,
Yes.
my something I love and something I enjoy, and it's I think the thing that you've done so well is partnering with these other organizations that have already got like this sort of infrastructure that have meant that you can support them. I mean, was it easy to find people to partner with? Did you, was that a quite simple process that you found?
Yeah, and that's a really, really good question. The answer is yes, and I think for anyone listening, just to give value to the audience as well, you'd be amazed at how many people are really out there trying to do good. And Fiona really said it well right there. It's so easy, and we all feel so disconnected, but there's so many of us. And I think big society and a lot of big news feeds, like, it makes you feel like we're all so disconnected and not a lot of people care. And we need to all do a better job about raising that public awareness, which is a whole other thing. But like, in terms of finding organizations, I think one of the coolest, like, most beautiful part about it is, let's say you care about the oceans, or you care about a certain island, or you care about a certain species, or you care about forests, or you care about deserts, or you care about, the tundra. You'd be amazed at how many organizations are out there focusing on macro climate
Yeah,
issues
yeah,
that you're like, well, Nick's the tree nerd, he's the conservation nerd, but man, like, I really love Madagascar, or I really love, the Canadian forests, or Appalachia, or or beaches, or oceans. You'd be amazed at how many organizations are out there that you can like allocate your like impact to. So
yeah,
if forests aren't your thing, but coastal regions are, there's so many nonprofit and organizations that are trying to regrow like all the coral reefs that are having the coral bleaching, or areas that are cleaning up our beaches and stuff like that. So if there's I guess, the long-tailed answer to your question is, if there's a certain thing that you care about, you can find it, and you don't have to be a coffee roaster to have that impact. If there's something that you love, if you're an artist and you love to draw, or you love to write, there's ways that you can build a passion project, organization, business, whatever the heck you want to call it. And then a part of that goes back towards the area that you care about. If you are
yeah.
passionate about conservation, you don't have to be the one planting the tree or doing the beach cleanup. You can do your passion and let your soul out and put it towards that impact that you really care about.
Yeah, no, I love that, Nick. I love that. It's fantastic. And I think that's the thing as well, is it's like everyone has something that they're slightly, more passionate about than other things. I mean, most of us like love nature as a whole, but we'll have
Yeah,
different elements that we really resonate with. I mean,
that's the
I
best
love
part of nature.
trees, so trees have always been a huge part of my life, and planting trees
Yeah.
has been huge. And I've I love talking to you about, all the projects that you work with. I had a guest last year, Helen, who's in the UK, and they actually took a different approach. So they bought a sort of 10 acre, I think 10 or 20 acres of land, and they planted like thousands of trees themselves.
Oh
And
my God,
it's
that's awesome. That's
and it's
badass. That's
yeah, and
so
it's
cool.
really it's amazing. She has an amazing story. There was a great episode
Awesome.
because they've now gone on and like they've partnered with other people, so they've kind of almost like made this sort of franchise around like tree planting, and people like
Yeah.
dedicate people like yourself who've got businesses and they want to do carbon offsetting, or they want to donate to
Yeah.
an
Yeah.
organization. They provide the framework, like some of the companies that you're partnering with, and but they're working specifically in the UK. And this is the other thing, is like
So
you're
cool.
working all around the world, but actually, there's places in the US that need reforesting. There's places in Canada, and
Yes.
sometimes it's
Yes.
it can be something more local as well. So it's yeah, I find it exciting. I get excited because I'm like, there's so many ways. There's so
Yep.
many ways that we can approach this. There's so many answers. There's so many different, routes that we can all take. And it's just the intention is the important thing. I think that's what it comes down to for me, is the intention of, wanting to do good, wanting to see a change, and having the courage to take that step. And remember that you have more power than you might realize.
It is
Um,
so true.
yeah,
Yeah, it's so true. And you touched on an important thing too. It's like, you don't have to be working on something on the other side of the planet. Wherever your town is, or wherever your city is, you can reinvigorate just that area.
yeah,
If you want to just be very small scale, like, you don't have to have a big organization and start your own nonprofit. You can just do something very local if you want, and that's completely okay. And it's me and Brian, my best friend and business partner. We say a lot, like, we're overwhelmed by opportunity because there's so many. It's so easy to get daunted by the negative things happening in the world, and obviously, like, bad news is clickbait. Like, it's just going to draw more people to look at it, but there's so much good happening on this world, and like, people just need to understand that. Like, we really do live in a good time. I'm not saying or discounting any of the bad stuff that is happening, because there's a lot, but we have a really exciting chance to do a lot of good too, and that's
yeah,
what I'm trying to say. And people just, I hope more people realize that, because there's a
yeah.
lot of resources available to people to make a difference in very small ways and in a very accessible manner. So, and that's
Yeah, and
special.
I think I think like we're more connected than we've ever been. Like sometimes it feels like we're
Yes.
very disconnected, but actually we have these amazing tools. Like you're sitting in the US, I'm in the
Look at
UK.
us.
We're talking about Indonesia and Madagascar and having an impact there and we have this amazing, the internet is an incredible resource, an incredible tool that has literally transformed our lives in the last 20 years. Not all of it good.
People don't appreciate it enough. I mean,
But
we were able to connect through it and meet
yeah,
each other, and
yeah,
that's really special. It is.
yeah, it is, and I think that's the thing that I'm seeing more is like there is this rise of like awareness and exposure to people that have this same belief, they have these same intentions, and I think there's a lot more people out there than we realize, and I think that gives me hope really. And my whole podcast thing is really about just it's not blind hope. It's a previous guest called it active hope, which is basically this idea that you take hope and you do something with it, and I think that's really what your business is this beautiful example of active hope, because you're creating hope in the world by what you're doing, who you're working with in on all levels, from sourcing your coffee to the local environment, the local community that are helping you to sell it and reach more people. And I'm sure like on all of your packaging and things, you've got explanations of what you do. So anyone who, might not come in direct contact with you but buys from one of your suppliers is like, oh, hang on a minute, this is interesting. And it's just like I was saying, it's all this amazing ripple effect that just touches more lives than we perhaps at first realize. So yeah, just it's been fantastic talking to you, Nick. I feel like probably a good time to like round up, but I don't know if there's anything that you just want to leave people with, anything that you would like to share before we wrap up today.
Yeah, no, and thank you. I think for a closing note is just, don't give up and just know that there really are special people that whoever's listening right now, that there's people like you that care, and there's a lot more that do, and just know that we're strong together, and, we really can make the difference. And, you know, and also just like believe in your dreams. If there's things that you care about that you really want to do, like you have my permission and Fiona's permission to really go for it and try, and I'm telling you right now, you are going to fail a million times. There's going to be bumps in the road, but you just cannot stop. I mean, I started 5 years ago. I'm still learning. I'm still failing, but you get farther, and you just have to
Yeah.
remember that, you're a strong person. You can believe in yourself, and you can make a difference in the way that you want to. And I also just want to take a minute too and just say thank you, Fiona, for having me. And
Oh,
just know that
thanks.
you're a force, and know that, you're doing this in your spare time and growing this and growing a community as well for people to care. And I hope you take a minute for yourself and realize like how special that is. Because I know I'm guilty of
Oh,
that, like I said, but you seem
yeah.
like you make it too, and you're just a great, genuine soul, and just know you're doing a really good thing, and you should be proud of yourself. So,
Oh, thank you so much, Nick. No, yeah, I am very guilty of that, which is why I see it in others.
because you know better than
Yeah.
most, right? Yeah.
But I will let everyone know that I'm going to have all of your links in the podcast notes and description, so they can look you up on social media. If they're local to you in the US, they can hopefully pop on and buy your coffee and let us know what it tastes like and that they enjoy it. And but yeah, just follow you on your socials as well, because it's a lovely, hopeful, passionate place as well. And I just would encourage people to just be inspired. Like I just felt inspired the moment I sort of connected with you. I was like, I know this is going to be a lovely conversation about what is possible, and I just want to thank you so much, Nick, for just delivering that in every possible way.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Thanks for starting off my day on a strong note. It's gonna be hard working the rest of the day, but I'm gonna be thinking of our call throughout it. So, and thank you again for having me, and please stay in touch.
Thank you so much for listening to the Nurtured by Nature podcast. I truly hope this conversation has brought some hope and inspiration into your life. I would love to have these messages ripple out across the world. So if you can, please share this episode with your friends, leave a review on your favourite podcast player, and make sure you subscribe so you don't miss the next episode. I would love to hear from you, so please feel free to connect with me on the links provided in the podcast description. But most importantly, thank you so much for being a part of this journey with me. But don't forget to simply get out there and enjoy the natural world.